yeah, we can get started and you know, as people pop on, they can join our conversation. Um, so I was thinking for Rachel and Scott who just joined, um, I was thinking about the areas that are obviously university college specific, but then also um, kind of things that haven't been discussed as much or that maybe we could go that are less easy to Google. Oh, Scott was like, nope, I'm not in.
Not for me. Not for me.
And yeah, so wherever the conversation may lead, I'm open to that. And yeah, and then there's also kind of, I guess, this idea that we're dealing with COVID, and then also we're dealing with this huge social justice work on behalf of Black lives that is rising up right now. So if the conversation gears at all toward that and kind of what we're thinking and feeling about that as leaders in our communities, I welcome ideas as well. Thank you, Angel. Glasses. And I'm just excited to learn from you all. So the first, I guess, idea that I had to kind of guide our conversation is thinking about programming and content and what we're thinking in terms of the fall. And maybe we're not quite there yet. But I do know that when Jeffrey and I have been talking about how we're going to plan right now, I think we're often in the time of like programming for next year. And it was really hard for me to figure out my approach to that. I know that Rob had said the more flexible, the better in terms of repertoire. And I really took that to heart. I very often get stuck in thematic programming and I get really kind of tunnel vision. And so now for me, I kind of reminded myself, like, now is the time to do those pieces that never fit on programs. And I've wanted to program for a really long time, but I just haven't had the chance to do so. Yeah, and then obviously you can read the other kind of ideas. You know, what do these rehearsals actually look like at the collegiate level? What drives our decision making, kind of more talking about equity in this whole process, and then virtual recruitment strategies. But again, I'm open to letting the discussion go where it may. And since we have 6 people, I guess we could do an organic raise your hand, or I'm happy to kind of call on people too, whatever is appropriate. And for those who don't know me, since Jody, I'm not sure if I've met you or not. Have we met at Akron maybe?
I'm at Santa Rosa Junior College.
Wonderful. Well, nice to meet you. I'm Corey Brown. I'm honored to serve as.
I've seen your name before, and I think we've been on email threads.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we have. So I'm just honored to be a new Californian. I guess maybe I won't call myself a Californian yet, but I'm really excited about the work that's happening and just excited to learn from you all. So programming, what are we thinking with regards to programming? Or feel free to propose other.
Sorry, I think that's me.
You know, just to get started, please don't hate me for making this comment, but I hate theme concerts because I feel that they are very restrictive. And I know some people could see that like a lack of originality or creativity of putting things that go together. Many times what I do, I group things by 2-3 pieces and then make it fit within using Roman numbers within the program, and I make it make sense. But my priority always is timbre, texture, styles, diversity, and all that kind of stuff, languages. And I feel that going like light and trying to make everything about light and enlightenment. Oh, for goodness sakes. I mean, I think that that's cute, but that doesn't speak to me very deeply. Interestingly enough, this past semester we were working on many. The students know that I tend to sing about the same songs, the same type of text. I believe in and unity and faith and love and those hope and those things are always recurring in everything that I'm choosing. So I changed the music, but the topics tend to be around the same because that's my value system. So what I'm hoping to do is to continue the same trend for next semester. There's some pieces that we're making beautiful progress this year that I would like to bring back next semester with some of with the groups that people tend to stay in. I would like to revisit some of the pieces because it was unfortunate we couldn't have a concert. So the reason I bring that up is because all of those were about, you know, sticking together, fighting the good fight, and rah rah type of songs. And I think it would be perfect for that. For this time, I didn't choose them based on that because I didn't know anything about the virus when I picked them in the fall of 19. But I'm planning to bring all of that back. In addition, Carrie Enhart, Daniel Alfonso, and I, we are the CSUs of the Central Valley, right? We are looking into commissioning a piece and being able to record it within the three of campuses, just as a sign of support to one another and our students, and come together. That way, it's not one of us commissioning a piece, but it's all of us, and we're trying to find a way to give people motivation to want to do it. Because, for example, for non-music majors, without a performance and without the rehearsal, why would they want to be there? What's in it for them? And that's why we're thinking, well, let's find a little project that will attract them, so they might want to be with us. So it might be that Daniel Afonso will be composing something for us, and then we will do a virtual type of performance with the groups from the three different campuses. We're thinking about that.
Beautiful. Scott?
Hey, first of all, I apologize for like the freeway sounds that you might hear behind me. I'm outside and my house is right on 101, so it's either that or kids screaming "Daddy, Daddy" at me. So it's I chose. Um, so actually, Angel, you just reminded me of something that I kind of decided to do. This is not like a big thing. This wouldn't be like a whole repertoire concert or anything like that, but I reached out to all of the choir directors from every level, elementary all the way up to community choir, in the San Luis Obispo County area. So it's about 20 of them. And so we're collaborating. Cal Poly is taking the lead on it, and I'll be sending out the videos and things like that. But we're going to do one virtual choir, just one together, but it's going to be hundreds of people. So it's kind of something that we're sort of letting evolve. If it's you know, there's a couple of high schools in our area that we're finding are having a really hard time because they know they're going to have to provide their students with something, but they just don't know what to do. So this is kind of an opportunity for them to latch on to us, and for us to maybe combine to do a concert. This wouldn't be the only concert we do at Cal Poly, but it might be the only concert they do at the high school level. So it's kind of a cool thing. It's kind of allowing us to, it's a little bit of recruitment, you know, in there too, which is a little self-serving, but it's also a really awesome time for us to collaborate together. So this is kind of an idea that we had. So that could turn into something. I don't know what it'll be. It'll probably be something like you said, sort of, you know, kind of an inspirational type thing. But that's kind of opened up some new ideas for us.
Nice. Yeah, the idea of even how to create concerts, right? We've talked a little bit about that, but you know, whether it's the Feel It Live, that kind of online concert, I think that Jeffrey's talked about that in a few of the past sessions, but you know, whether it's that or a virtual choir, or whether we do have the possibility of rehearsing in quartets or octets for some of the time with all of the procedures in place, you know, and then we are going to be quarantined. I think for me, this idea of flexibility, that if the students can be in quartets, and then, you know, and the idea also of rehearsing and performing modularly, that will do a piece or two pieces in a 2-week period and get it performance ready in that 2-week period. I think that's really appealing to me, just because then they do have that sense of we're creatures of habit, and having that sense of a performance, even if it's obviously not going to be an actual audience performance, that it's appealing to kind of have that sense of closure. Any other comments about actually like what the meat of this is going to look like? Adam?
Corey, I just talked a bunch, so I don't want to talk much more, but what you just said, I don't know if I'd be interested in hearing from you all. We've been told, because we're in that situation like a lot of you are, where we're thinking that we might be able to do something, like socially distant, not everybody, but some people. But we've also been told directly that it's no matter what, that's going to be optional. So we are going to be required to offer something virtual for people that aren't comfortable doing that, regardless. So for me, I'm having a real hard time figuring out, because I can't just pick one body of repertoire, because some people I have might be coming together and some people I'm going to have to do it virtually. So I'm kind of thinking about doing like 1 or 2 virtual sort of offerings, at the same time preparing for stuff that's going to happen later in the year, hopefully in person. And then at the same time, maybe doing some small group live. I don't know. I would be interested to hear what you guys have.
Yeah, I have some ideas about that, but Adam had raised his hand before.
I just thought I'd share to you what we're planning. A lot of the choirs, for those of you who don't know me, I was formerly at Cal State Long Beach, and now I'm at the University of Victoria in Canada. And I went to Florida State with Anhil. One of the things that we're doing, at least my choir is the symphony chorus. It's 170 singers, and so obviously that puts my group out of the running for anything. But what we've decided for all our large ensembles at our university is that we're just 100% online. It's a little weird because our studio, our one-on-one voice lessons are actually face-to-face. As we've just gotten approval literally yesterday from the provost. So it's really odd. We're not even sure how students are even going to come. We're on an island, and it's a huge island, but it's a destination campus, and so it's difficult. And we're only going to open residences for 500 students, and that's a particular group of students. So we're not sure how this is all going to work, and we think the university's crazy to be sending all these mixed messages. But we're at 0 in terms of new cases now 2 days in a row. So we're doing fine, and I think that's the diversity of who we are in Canada. We have that opportunity. But I'm with my large chorus, we're doing Beethoven Ninth. That was the original plan. We're sticking to it, and we're joining with Concordia University, which is in Edmonton. So it's only an hour time difference. Their rehearsals are on Monday, our rehearsals on Tuesday, so that each of our chorus members can transfer whichever chorus rehearsals they want. We're going to share in the teaching, share in the voice usage of whether it's German or vocal diction or whatever we want, because we know the work is too hard on just all our own, but we're going to share the workload. And that seems to be a common theme throughout many of the Canadian universities. We're sharing the workload between choirs and different institutions in a geographical area. So I've invited our community choruses here if they're interested in joining us in our rehearsals. And the plan is my choir is going to travel at the end of the academic year, which is spring 2021, to Edmonton to sing with their symphony, the Beethoven Ninth. And their choir is going to travel to Victoria for their choir, whoever wants to come, to sing with our symphony. And if it doesn't happen, and like we're not together till the fall, then that's fine. We're just not going to even worry about it. But it gives them a goal. And so I think there are those 2 methods of the short-term thing. Maybe for our chamber choir, we're doing that kind of 2-week thing, like you're saying, where we work intensely and find some kind of culminating, and then just start something new. But then there's this long-term thing for some of the things. I've got 50 community members, and some of them age up to 80, and they're interested in being a part of this. So I'm thinking, how do I do students first year to graduate plus community people? It's town and gown, right? And you probably all have some of those things too. So everybody's thrilled about having a goal and something that they would like to work with, and so that's what we're doing.
I love that, Adam. I think that's really wise, no matter how we end up programming, to have some short-term goals that we do feel that sense of fulfillment that is really lacking in the virtual rehearsal. And then also that long-term, so that also you're not spending time on, so they're not getting bored with that rep that they're doing over and over. And then you also have that we can work on German diction, et cetera. That's great. Just real quick, Scott, to respond quickly to what you said about on campus, off campus, all of that challenge. Yes, it is clear that it will not be required. But it is required to be in the rehearsal in some way, shape, or form. So I don't know if it's naive for me to think that I can zoom in, like if I'm working with a quartet or an octet, and then the other octets by choice are working spread out outside, whatever, for 2 weeks on a piece, on a project, kind of project based, that the other students who are compromised, et cetera, that can't come onto campus, that they would zoom in to those rehearsals and act like it was a normal Zoom rehearsal, mute themselves, work on their own. I'm not sure. I think it's tricky when you open it up to possibly having this chance to be together. But I guess I am trying to face that logistical challenge, because I do think that if it's possible, if it's safe, all of those things, some of the students would really benefit from even 2 weeks. Say we have 2 weeks of quartet rehearsals, that they would benefit from just seeing each other and actually singing. Yeah, go ahead, Jody.
I just want to clarify, when you say quartets, and that you're saying that each of these are their own discrete literature. They have their own piece.
Right now, I'm envisioning that we are all working on the same piece.
Okay.
So we are all of the quartets, and whether or not you're at home or you're in quartets, or say we can do octets 1 week, or a bigger group and a huge, we just don't know how it's going to change.
I'm sorry, where are you?
I'm at San Jose State University.
Okay, so okay, all right. And it's all getting straight. I just saw this was happening and I went, oh, I'm there, so I didn't prepare at all in my head. I just wanted to ask, so you are able to go outside and actually you envision being able to work together as long as you're not in an enclosed environment?
Again, I said at the beginning that I'm just trying to be as flexible as possible. I think I just think our conversation in August is going to be completely different again. It's changed so quickly. So I'm dreaming about my students getting to sing in quartets. That's a dream. But I'm not going to put them at risk, and I'm going to follow all the CDC and the CSU, and so it's a dream, and I don't know if it'll be possible, but I'm trying to program with that idea that whether or not we're in quartets or octets or 30 people or one-on-one via Zoom, that these pieces can be put together. I also envision if we're all in quartets, for example, doing a virtual choir, but where the quartets are recorded. And so we would have a click that would merit a click track or something, so that we're all in the same tempo, but where there's a bunch of quartets instead of their own little squares on the virtual choir. I'm just trying to be flexible.
No, I agree with you. I was like, we don't have that permission yet, but I'm like you. I think things are changing so fast. And I'm sorry, Rachel, if I cut in ahead of you or your question, or you had something that you wanted to say. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm all the way north at Humboldt State University, and to be honest, I my head isn't buried in the sand, but I was trying to survive the semester, and then and then sort of take a moment because we're in the same boat. We don't know what's going to be. We're hoping, technically that we're going to be on, in person for ensembles, but I'm, based on CDC stuff and what I call the SAD webinar, the one that everybody saw, like, I'm not feeling very hopeful about the safety of that or the, but but maybe, you know, I mean, I am hopeful, but not predicting that. So I've been, I mean, I guess it's weird. I'm more, I've not been thinking so specifically about repertoire. I mean, you started with repertoire and I was like, oh my God, I'm more wondering if we're just going to be together. And I'm a little bit more, I think, Angel, like what you were talking about. My programs tend to be, I noticed a trend. I didn't even know I was conscious of it, but they tend to be about unity or you know, people coming together and usually as diverse as possible, just because I think that, because that's important to me. That's part of my yeah, that's important to me, and I think to my students. So so I imagine all of that, especially, you know, in this weird time, and I mean, I know you brought up Corey before, but you know, especially this week, I think we're all just reeling from the events of this week, and I've been thinking about that a lot, and you know, just trying to figure out how it's a challenge for us to think about, you know, coming together when we're not able to be together. And I mean, in terms of like the actual in-person rehearsals, in some ways I'm imagining that I'm not worrying so much about the musicality of those rehearsals as I am about just to support each other, and you know, just remember that we are a community, because I'm just envisioning that it's going to be kind of lonely for the students to be motivated. I'm worried about, you know, we're not a school, you know, we're a liberal arts university. We're very isolated up north in rural Humboldt County, and it's I guess the motivation in a lot of ways for my students is to see what the fellow choirs are doing, you know, what they do in a particular concert. For somebody, you know, for one of the less experienced singers to say, wow, university singers sounded up so amazing, or I didn't, you know, and they're not going to get that, you know, same experience. I mean, hopefully they'll get something good, but not to get that, to not get that same experience. I'm still kind of trying to process that, and how to maintain that standard, you know, without having the leaders do the leading, you know, in rehearsal, basically, like, you know, to rely just on self-motivation is of the students, obviously, and my motivation, you know, my motivating them too. It's just a little daunting, I guess, just knowing my students. You know, they want it, but they want it more when they have the community. I mean, and I know this is true for everybody, but they want it a lot more when they have the community aspect, and you know, yeah.
And I just say something that I hope is reassuring. I have kind of the same thing, because even though we have what we think of as a strong music department and music majors, and I think, Corey, you know Elizabeth Allen, who's my former student, and you're getting another one. Yeah, you're getting another one of mine, Dana Johnson, so Danae. And yeah, we have a good program, but really our choirs survive on the wish to be part of that community. And that scares me existentially more than if I were in a four-year program where, you know, we just weather the conditions and say, yeah, but do you want your degree, you know? And even though that's still not, it's shaky, but not as shaky, I think, as it is for some of us who don't have that environment, that structure around. Mm-hmm. And so they even said I went ahead and scheduled both of my choirs, the big one and the small one, and they wanted me to compact them, and they said, are you sure? And I said, no. But I did find that by using breakout rooms, and like what you were talking about, Corey, by getting them into small groups, I realized they really wanted to see each other and sing and try out different stuff and try recording themselves singing different ways. And I was just wrecking that. So I just would show up and go, what are you guys doing? You know, and that was kind of working for me. I don't think as a steady diet, I want that, but that was definitely reassuring to me that that was a big draw for them. So if I can put the genie back in the bottle just a little so that I'm actually getting somewhere goal oriented, like what you were saying, Adam, like getting somewhere that has merit and makes music and teaches and stuff, as well as just be a place for them to come together. And they did produce some really nice stuff at the end. We produced a really nice musical product that was gorgeous. And everybody was very proud of it. So anyway, I just wanted to say, I had that experience, and I'm on the basis of that, I'm not as scared as I was, but I'm pretty scared still.
That's so important, though. I think I keep coming back to the mantra almost of, we are continuing to make music. We must continue to make music, even if it is not as nourishing as normal and as communal as normal, for the future. Because if we just stop, I mean, even though I'm at a 4-year university with students like Elizabeth Ellen, who is amazing, I have felt like I just want to throw in the towel. I mean, this past week especially, I've just been like, I give up. I can't, you know, but I think that I just keep coming back to this idea that, like, we have to keep making music for after COVID. And we have to make this process as helpful as possible. So I'm interested in what are you thinking about in terms of the process of these online, say we're all virtual and we're doing virtual rehearsals. What does that process look like? What has been useful already that you've learned? I've heard from so many people, you know, about projecting the score on the screen so they can follow along with it. You know, having them conduct, like we all conduct in our rehearsals already, but having them conduct with you and with the recording. How do you, there of course is some, I've heard little rumblings of technology that might let them sing like in a quartet at the same time. I forget the names of those, but right, there's some ideas that are coming out that people are devopping technologically. But
I haven't explored it yet, but I heard about SoundJack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. But what are you doing in rehearsals that is really working and that makes them not feel so alone just singing with themselves and us playing the piano or whatnot?
This isn't much. By the way, I don't think I know most of you, but I'm at Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, so center of the state. I just wanted to say, first of all, to your point, Corey, I'm actually interested in hearing that too. One thing that I did that was a little helpful when we were working on these virtual choirs is that I had my section leaders. They did the videos first so that their voice was to it. So they're not just singing, they're singing with their section leader. So at least there's that. It made them feel a little bit better about it. They got more used to the process, I think, as we went along. But to the other point, the platform that Jeffrey used, the Feel It Live thing, we're using that coming up next Monday for the same idea. And I found, even though I'm so nervous about it because I have no idea what the product's going to be. Like usually when you go into a concert, like you know kind of where your choir's at. I have no idea if this is going to be awful or great, like because I haven't heard it, you know. But I've noticed this kind of like energy all of a sudden around my students because they just have something to present. And like one of my choirs, like my chamber group that works on Bach all the time, like obviously we were not going to do a virtual choir with Bach, you know, that would be a disaster. So their offering is literally that they just sent like funny videos of themselves, and it's like this really ridiculous thing that has like music playing underneath it. It's a recording of them from like last year, you know, that type of thing. And it's just something, you know, that they've had. So I mean, to your point, Jody, as well, I think I'm interested also in how we can be better at the music making process. But I have 200 kids in my program, but only 30 of them are voice majors. So most of my kids are not voice majors, but they need this more than the voice majors. I mean, and I've been really upfront with them, and I've been talking to them about community and of how necessary it is that even though this isn't 100% great, that they stick with it if they want to be involved, because, you know, we have to keep the momentum. And I think they get it. You know, I think they do. And I think they're kind of galvanized behind that, actually. So but I would love to hear how we can make it better musically too, because I am also struggling with that. I like your idea, Adam, of working towards something at the end of the year as well. I think that's really good.
I just have a little quick funny thing to say that I just was asked out of the blue if my choir would sing for our Sunday service for the Unitarian Universalist Church this Sunday. And it's like, oh, okay, so here's the flash drive. Yes, we will. We already have done the recording. It exists no matter where those singers are. But what happened was the choir director said, okay, let's make it a sing-along. And that became something that just evolved last night. And we put it out for alumni and, her former high school students and some other people. And, a group showed up like this, maybe a dozen people came last night and a bunch of people called and said, give me the directions, give me the, the click track. And some people, so what we're doing is having everybody sing on the choruses of something we've already recorded this week, just for this one occasion. And then we're all going to look at it on Sunday together. And then we're all going to talk about it at 12 o'clock at the coffee hour with the congregation. And then it'll never be heard again. I mean, that's just how we're using that. And that original sound file still exists. That was our polished, beautiful, you probably know the Matthew Brown arrangement of True Colors. We did that because it had been at Mac and Carrie had done it. And so we went, that's it, that's what we'll do. But we were trying to make it feel like it's something really happening in the community in a way that's normal, that the choir sings for the church and the community, and then everybody gets to sing along. And we're kind of finding that, I was surprised, but I don't know what it'll turn out like. I'll let you guys know. What happens with that. It's kind of a fun thing. We're all kind of figuring it out as we go along.
Adam,
So just wanted to share it.
Yeah, thanks.
These are really great ideas, and it's really interesting. They seem to be. I host a weekly meeting of our provincial choral conductors here in British Columbia, just to hear what they're doing. Our university shut down April 1st because, I'm talking about that's the end of our semester. So when we shut down in March, I literally had my concert March the 7th. It was March the 10th when we shut down. So it just happened. So that was my last concert. It was really early in the semester, but we're already done by April the 1st. So we're not back together again till after Labor Day. Which is pretty common in Canadian universities. We're only 13 weeks. So it's very short. And I usually have 8 rehearsals before I have to produce a major choral orchestral work each term. It's pretty tight. But one of the things that I've learned, which is really interesting, and I think that's the part that I'm still trying to get my head around how we're doing it. Normally my students and my singers will come to me for 2.5 hours and I work them to death, 2.5 hours, and that's it, right? And then I'm hoping that some of them will actually kind of look at the music before the next week, but most of them don't. And what I found is that most of the non-music majors, because of the hefty amount in my chorus, they actually outperform the music majors in terms of when it comes to testing. Because when I test, I just get them to hold their phone in front. We sing through the work. They submit the recording and on my teaching, and I listen. It is horrid what I have to listen to, all these examples. And I'm thinking, but they sound amazing, in live. And so I'm thinking, that's the joy of a non-audition choir, right? That's the magic that we do and that we work, and that's really exciting. So, there's that whole balance line, and I think all of you've kind of hit on the thing that I think is kind of the stream that I've really listened to is like, how do you provide variety? Because if you look at the research out there, you can't do 2.5 hours online. There is no way. We'll be lucky if we get through 5 or 10 minutes before I start losing people, right? And so it's like, how do I break it up? And a lot of the people have been suggesting at the university level that if you ask the students what would keep their interest and how they could be active and what ideas they have, they will come up with some ideas that work for them and their grouping. For our local choirs, we've been using Jamkazam. And but you have to be connected with Ethernet, and you have to be within 50 kilometers, so that's a really short distance. Like I wouldn't even make it to Seattle, right? So everybody has to be close by. And of course, when you're a destination university, we've got kids from China and like yours everywhere. I don't know how they're going to be able to rehearse with us, but we might be able to do quartets online, live, in smaller quartets using that program. But then there's there's no guarantee that all these students have the technology that we're requiring. So that's another kind of a hurdle that we're trying to, get around. Is it possible that you run a live rehearsal with those students who are on campus, maybe social distance in a, I don't know, giant gym or something like that, and you're taping that while the students and singers who are online are watching and being a part of that? I don't know if they'd be even interested in any of that. So we're just throwing these around. It's like, okay, what are the possibilities? I'm not going to rehearse my choir on a football field. I'm just not going to do it.
Adam, you just so perfectly bring us to this idea of equity. And I know that some people hear equity and it's like, oh gosh, it's a big thing, right? And especially right now. But I think it is something that has come up. I mean, no matter where we are, no matter who our students are, I mean, maybe at very few universities do they maybe not have to think as much about technological equity, and that everyone doesn't have two devices to look at the music and then record on another device and whatnot. There's equity issues everywhere. So I don't know if you all have ideas about how we can think about equity in a time of a synchronous virtual rehearsal. I was speaking with a friend yesterday, and even things like virtual backgrounds, evening the playing field of what our home space looks like, and how we really do judge based on a background of what somebody, so if we require virtual backgrounds for all of our students, there's an even to even the playing field, or just the option of just audio recordings, although it's maybe not as great. What are we going for? Are we going for the process, or are we going for the product is perfect and with video all the time? I've been thinking about, do I mail music to my students so that they actually have the physical copies if they maybe don't have as many devices and it's harder to access, and some of them actually do still like to write in the music? I don't know, the non-major, there's a lot of equity issues. And then of course, now with the murder of George Flynn, how do we work this huge social justice issue that has been present in our ethos for centuries, but now that is really kind of, coming to the surface, and a lot of our students are angry, rightfully so. How do we work this new conversation, or not new conversation, but right, like this very present conversation into our rehearsals, and as leaders, how do we talk about it? I don't know. There's a lot of equity challenges that I'm really passionate about, but I also am finding myself at a loss right now as a leader to know exactly how to respond and exactly how to work with this in a virtual reality.
I think you said something really good when you said ask the students. I mean, to some extent, you have to lead, you have to know where you're going. But this was the most I have ever not known what I was doing in my life, running a choir. And the first day I looked at this grid, I had taken like a week of lessons on how to run Zoom. I had no idea. And there were 50 faces, not even all at the same time. I thought, this is a total disaster. But then because I felt like I had to have the answers. And then when I found out that the section leaders, they really stepped up, and they, like I said, they really were able to do things that I didn't know you could do. And they were able to give me tips without it being, undermining my authority and the fact that I know what I'm doing. They were able to, I said, oh, well, you can do that. I didn't know you could do that. And they showed me all kinds of screen recording tips and, all these things where, oh, it's just down here, And so I found all these things. And that was really where I figured out that I need to go to the students and say, how can we address this? How can we do this? But I then have to have a whole array of tools in my workbox that I've already looked up in case somebody says something. I go, I've got the piece for that, or I've got the thing for that, instead of me having figured out all the answers, because that is not going to do it. And so in the summer, I'm calling all the choir people together just to have this conversation. And they said, okay, we'll do it. And I said, really? But what else are they going to do? So yeah, I think they will. Yeah. That's all.
I was gonna bring something up that's kind of related to equity. Um, One of my concerns has been, Corey, and you were talking about the possibility of like there being some sort of hybrid model, right, where some of our students are on campus and some aren't, and things like that. Um, Especially for us at Cal Poly, kind of like you were saying, Adam, most of our students are not local San Luis Obispo people. They're from other areas. So there's a big question of like, are they going to be here or not? Um, one of my concerns is I don't want there to be this sort of like caste system between, you know, who's here, who's not. Are they treated equally? I've also been kind of thinking about, I've actually told my students that I intentionally don't want to know from them on an individual basis if they're coming back or not. And then I'm going to do auditions intentionally not knowing if they're here or not, so that I can set my ensemble rosters without there being any thought of like prejudice over with that or not. It's important for me because I have so many non-majors. They just need to know that I'm not making decisions, not that I ever would, but you know, they need to know that I'm not making decisions based upon their personal comfort level coming here or not, because everybody has different situations. So I just thought I'd offer that because that's, I think, something maybe we should be thinking about too. If we do end up in some sort of hybrid model, we need to make sure that we're being equitable to all of our kids in whatever situation we're in.
We've started having some music majors complain that they want elective choices instead of large ensembles. So once we said, okay, all our large ensemble are going to be offered online, our majors have been demanding, well, it's not the same experience, so I want to be able to choose an elective, even though that's a required part of their degree. And which is really interesting, and that's come to my desk as the associate provost, associate dean, and I've had to say, oh no, we cannot make changes to your degree just because it's convenient and we're in emergency process. You know, if it's changing the curriculum that we're about to design for you in a large ensemble, whether it happens to be my ensemble or someone else's symphony or wind symphony, that is an emergency curriculum for emergency times. And it doesn't mean your degree gets to be hijacked any way you would like it to be. And that's one of the new things that's just arising this week. We're starting to get all these requests, and I'm having to put a stop to that because I'm thinking, no. Just thought I'd share that little piece with you.
Well, I think a lot of people are hijacking this moment, like to get rid of choir programs they don't want anymore, or whatever, you know, or get rid of the church choir they didn't really want in the first place, or things like that, I suppose. But yeah, not just the students, but you know, everybody's kind of looking opportunistically at this moment. We're very vulnerable, I
And
think.
that's why we have to keep it going. No matter what we do, it may not be the same thing. Whatever we try, we have to keep it going. Um, that's the reason why.
And I think that not only are our students, but our faculty, I'm searching for a sense of normalcy. And, you know, Jeffrey is very eloquent and clear that this is not normal. This is not the new normal. And I absolutely stand behind it. But what is normal is how we interact with our students, and that we will show up, and that we will be on Zoom when we say we're going to be on Zoom, and we're going to you know, provide them some source of music and inspiration and place to be with everyone. So yeah, I think that sense of like clear continuity and clear, yeah, just clarity and normalcy in whatever way we can create is important. Any other comments about equity or
Yeah, you know, I would like to say here at CSUB, there's a lot of poverty. We have a lot of students that truly struggle financially, and many of them still live at home. And this period then was a period that they became caregivers for younger siblings, or doing a whole bunch of things that all of a sudden affected them in a completely different way. Um, so I'm thinking that even though we know this because we are all teachers, uh, we cannot say enough the importance of being flexible with less repertoire, level of difficulty of the repertoire. Um, like Jody and Scott and Adam have mentioned, to treat this with openness in terms of accepting feedback and accommodating the needs of others. Uh, for elementary music methods, I was teaching that class this semester. I had a student that emailed me a little bit embarrassed. She said, well, the homework that I need to do in order to submit that as a PDF, I have to print it, Dr. Vasquez, and I don't have a printer. And that, it blew my head. I didn't even think of that as a problem. But of course, the right answer is, okay, how many days do you need? I just try to scramble and make it as easy for her as possible. But I'm thinking that if we all keep that in mind, because all of our universities and or institutions are so different, and we serve different people with different needs, I think that but it's important is just flexibility and stay borderline. I would say the word is compassionate, to be compassionate with our students. I want to tell you, perhaps you can tell from my accent, I speak Spanish. I'm from Puerto Rico, and our island got hit many times with storms, tropical storms or hurricanes, usually in the fourth semester, because the hurricane season starts from June to late September. Uh, when a hurricane comes to the island, many times you lose power, and so you cannot cook like you normally would do, or you don't have water and service of distribution of food, and everything gets disrupted. When I think about that, I'm thinking nobody was concerned about if choir was going to continue or not. Those are real emergencies. This is not an emergency. This is just a temporary precaution that we're taking to lower the risk of people getting sick. I have had, honestly, a hard time connecting with people that see this like, this is not an emergency. People are not hungry. People are in air conditioner, most of them, with internet, still have Netflix, and they're having a good old time for the most part. I remember living without power for months, or not having things. When you don't have water and you cannot shower, that's a problem. But this situation is not that. So what I've been saying to my colleagues and my students is, see this in context. This is just a temporary situation of precautionary measures. Hopefully it will get better if everybody chip in and do their part. Meanwhile, let's just help one another by being nice and using common sense. In terms of rehearsal and musicality, I guess my expectations are gonna be lower. I want people to show up and try their best, and that's it. Uh, the technology part, Scott, I have to be honest with you, I have to figure it out. I kind of suck at it, and I don't know all the software that is available out there. But what I'm gonna try to do is do manageable things that they can do. Perhaps this is a semester that we're gonna do 3 pieces, but do them really well. And perhaps this is a semester that they get to actually write about the composer, or do a discography. That's what it's called. When we used to call it that in Puerto Rico, discografía, right? When you take this piece and you write about these 3 versions that you hear of the same piece. So perhaps this is the semester that we do more of those things than performance based. That's gonna be harder for me because I love being in the rehearsal. I just sweat for that. I just love it. But this is not the semester for that. But it's not an emergency. It's just a temporary period that will pass, like other things have passed. But this is not. This is not the emergency that some people have turned it out, or think it is. You know, I would say just chill, relax, do the best for your students. And that's not to undermine what's happening in New York or what's happening in some of the big cities that truly have had a lot of cases and people that unfortunately have passed. At least in the Central Valley in California, it has not been like that, and that's good. So I'm talking from the bubble that I'm living in. Right here, not that many cases, not that many people have passed away. So for us, and seeing this just as uh, precautionary measures. But I know that my reality is a different reality than what other people would be experiencing. Sorry for talking so long, but that's it. Yeah.
Thanks for your perspective on HED. Absolutely valid, and yeah.
Angel, just to be clear, I also suck at technology. I am absolutely paying somebody who knows what they're doing to put these things together.
I wonder if I'm the only one. We have a full-time staff accompanist in the music department. And of course, within 10 minutes, she had no more job really, except to a few recorded accompaniments for people. She completely reinvented herself as an audio-visual editor, to the point of the school gave her stuff to work with, and she said, oh, this is junk, and went out and bought her own stuff so that she could work on it around the clock, which is what it took, and taught herself how to do that. And she did an amazing job. But when you come down to it, I wonder how the classified staff union will feel about the way I mean, that's not her job description at all. So, but I'm not going to argue about it. I really am glad she was willing to do that, because it was really, really great. And we had a wonderful experience thanks to her doing that. So just saying, that was just an interesting thing. You never know what people can do until they suddenly have to do it. And she did it.
Yeah, we're all reinventing ourselves, but that's awesome. So we have 4 minutes left. Are there any, outstanding questions that you all have? Adam has his hand raised.
I was just curious how you're all doing. We're not unaffected by everything that's happening, the social unrest that's happening in the United States. I mean, you've probably heard we've had riots, literally, not demonstrations, but riots. Yes, the Canadians are rioting. And so we've had damage in some of our major metropolitans, and we just we're just like completely flabbergasted. But we're not. I mean, there are not a lot of Black people in Canada. There's some on the East Coast, because that is part of the end of the trail. But it really, there aren't that many. But we do have we've been having some issues with COVID-19 and racism for our very large Asian population. And I think that's been something it's reared its ugly head. But also, of course, we have a large Indigenous population. We have over 200 Indigenous nations in British Columbia alone. Never mind, we've got 1/5 of the population of Indigenous people in Canada in British Columbia, and that's an ongoing problem. And one of the things that's just it's hard, because it's like, who speaks up for whom? This probably sounds familiar, Angel. Who speaks for whom, and what is there really a right way forward? I mean, I've known racism all my life. I remember when I was a kid being called a chink and all that kind of stuff, and I'm experiencing it now. I can walk in a store and you can see people sneering at me, and I'm thinking, excuse me, I'm 5th generation Canadian. I've never been to Asia ever. Right, but I am Chinese. It's true. So it's like there's a really good example of like just blatant racism. People just making assumptions, and I take it with a grain of salt, because otherwise, if you start taking it personally, that's going to be the end of your life. I mean, I've got other things to think about, students and other people, but it's problematic, and I don't know how my students are feeling about this. There's always this sense of trying to either jump on some kind of bandwagon and try to be self-righteous. I mean, it's a complicated issue, really complicated. And I know that singing helps us get through the emotion of the rawness of the time. I know it helps us during sadness and the grief process. When we're angry, it's probably great for us to be singing. So, maybe singing Beethoven Ninth isn't the right thing to be doing during that time. But I think there's going to be a portion of my time that I think, like you've commented, my rehearsal, where we're going to do some sing-along, whether it's Beatles or whether it's something else. It's just pure singing along. There's stuff where we're going to be doing the Beethoven. There's stuff where we're going to maybe doing a variety show, and letting people share their talents. If everybody wants to sign up to take a turn, those who are interested, share what your talent is with us, so that we get to know you in a way that otherwise 170 people never get to know each other. And how I get to know my singers. It'd be a great idea. But I'm just kind of curious from the rest of you how things are. I mean, people are reeling, and I've never seen anything like this. But um, I don't know what the answer is for my, as a leader, but also just as a human being. I don't know what the answer is, and I think it's okay not to know the answer.
I'm not raising my hand because I know the answer. I certainly do not. But well, first of all, I appreciate you saying all those things. Thank you. And I, I guess my first instinct is to go to the music. To pick a piece. That just gives them some structure rather than it can seem a little awkward. So, yeah, even though you're doing Beethoven 9, maybe you can do a protest song in there sometime as a sing along or something that can just invite the conversation, whether it's a polished 4-part, 8-part thing or not, yeah, I think I haven't decided the repertoire yet because as we all, nothing is, all those back burner pieces that I had in my mind are, it's not on the table anymore. So I have to kind of just completely rethink my repertoire choices. But I almost feel like remiss if I don't include pieces that will invite that conversation, because we're as a society, we're facing the grief and the pain of the pandemic along the grief and alongside the grief and pain of racism and all the and everything that's gone on this week, and it's so I and like several of you have said already, like to let the students, we did last fall. I did We Can Mend the Sky, Runestad, about Somali immigrants, and it was just great because we was able to invite discussion, and then we heard these stories about their own personal stories about their relatives from Guatemala, or and just and it was really meaningful to the choir to hear these really beautiful, hard stories, but that helped us as a community to feel them together. So it's I think we're in a tricky spot as choral directors because sometimes we feel like therapists, and I'm not trained to be a therapist, but I feel like we have to include some of these, we have to, if I'm really honest, it's part of the deal. Where, singing together is, there's an emotional component, and there's a community component that's like nothing else. And I've found that when I allow that, it just strengthens the choir. It makes the Beethoven and makes everything better, in my opinion. And I just also want to say, I really appreciate all your ideas about things, like about having that goal. That's a really that's inspiring. It's giving me some ideas, or even the commission ideas. Like that's just because that's one thing. Probably the biggest thing I'm struggling with is I know I can do good music with them. I know I can do a good rehearsal, but it's finding ways to make them motivated, to help them get motivated to do it in this really crappy way. Let's just be honest, in this way that none of us want, so thanks.
Adam, you opened up such a important conversation, and I typed a few things in, but it's like we all could talk about this, I think, over drinks for 3 hours, and we might not still have the answer. And I also am a person that wants to try to end on time, even though we're already over time. So I'm struck between kind of those two challenges of wanting to continue to open up about this. And I'm really torn based on my comments in the chat. And I'm really thinking and listening.
Yeah. I know it's time to go, but I would like to say one more thing. I do believe that our students they know our value system because we live them. So I'm less concerned about everything that we write on social media and all the rah ha ha ha, because they know us, and we need to trust that. we show on a daily basis how we treat the students in our classroom, the repertoire that we select, the text that we are singing about. They know, the what our value system is. So I think that that's how I speak out. They know me. My students just see through me so easily, uh, to the point that I don't feel a compelling reason to let me put down something in social media so they know what I'm thinking. They know me, and I know. Uh, I don't know. Uh, Phenomenological experience here. I cannot quantify why they know, but I can tell you that I believe that my students know how I feel about these things. And for any of us that might feel that, well, we are in the summertime, how do we communicate? Our students know. One thing that I do often, I talk about voting. That's the one thing. I never talk about parties. I don't talk about specific ideas. But I talk about civility and being an active member of our society. And they know that to me, that means we have to vote. So that's the one thing that I do mention often. And, you know, for college students, that's a big deal that they need to realize, oh, yeah, you have something that you can do, vote. Um, so that's what I would like to say about what Adam was inquiring. I know that it's not a very specific idea, but I honestly know that they know us. They know where we stand with our hearts and our belief system. And Corey, thank you for trying to hurting us through this conversation for about an hour. Sorry for going over. Uh, for me, this has been a lot of fun because my wife is a teacher, but she teaches middle school, and uh, it's so exciting to see all of you college teachers that I don't get to see often. So thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thanks for saying that. That's one great thing. That's I get to see Corey and we can talk about Elizabeth, and I get to see Adam. We can talk about our workshop experience together. And that's really great because I really feel like this has at least brought us closer together in a funny kind of way. Yeah.
Same here. Thanks so much for, gosh, it's just such an honor and pleasure to get to know you all. And Adam, thanks especially for being here, even though you're still a part of our community, but you're farther away. And Rachel, you're so far up there. So it's just really wonderful to reconnect, especially because we won't have Echo this summer to be able to do that.
Almost closer to Adam.
True.
Funny. So goodness gracious, I wish you all a really rejuvenating summer. And I definitely am standing in solidarity with anyone on hell. I wish I were as chill as you and trustful that my students know me. I think they just don't know me yet, so I'm a little more worried, and I'm a white female, so it's just a different way, you know. It's pretty intense, but I think we are going to get through this. And you're right, it is a blip on the radar of our careers, and we just have to keep going and keep making music and keeping there for our students. So thanks for all the great ideas, everyone. Yeah, have a good summer. Be well.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Good luck.
Bye, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.